And just bear with me for everything kicks into life. Just letting a couple of people in, as you can tell. Okay, guys. So we're here for now. If anyone joins, I will certainly obviously let them in as we go along. But let's kick off on CVs. Now, where are you guys? The people that haven't got their camera on, I can't see you if you give me a thumbs up. So let's make that bigger. Can you see that presentation screen in front of you? Great stuff. Great stuff. Thanks a lot. Let's just pull that down a bit further. Okay, so introduce myself at the start there. Those of you that don't know me, I know we've got a mixture of people here today. For people I don't know, people who are clients and people who I've spoken to before. So great, and hi to everybody. My company is Executive Connections. You can have a look around on that web link there if you choose to do so. We've been going for over 10 years now. I managed to miss the 10-year anniversary of the organization because I kind of overlooked the date. We're so busy going through. So going to have a little retrospective celebration at some point, I expect. We work with people all over the world, actually, in various ways, sometimes coming through redundancy, sometimes coming through their own, their own choice to have a conversation. And I've got a team of coaches that are kind of spread throughout various countries, all experienced and all work very well with our clients, I feel. So this mastery series, great title, I think. But anyway, what we did last autumn and going into the winter, we kind of covered some of these subjects that we're now revisiting, and just want to give people the opportunity to come back onto these sessions and ask any questions and kind of take it from there. Really, it's quite straightforward. We will cover, for example, LinkedIn, the hidden jobs market, interviews, personal branding, and some things they're just interwoven with each other. You can't avoid that kind of scenario. But again, as I emphasized at the start, for anyone that's joined and didn't catch that piece, that the bulk of this is around the interaction that we have after the actual event itself. Just take a look at CVs then. If you can mute your microphone, that would be great. I think that might be cheaper if you could. So the CV itself, yeah, obviously it's a big part of the personal brand still. People can get really obsessed about getting the perfect CV, and I feel sometimes it's a way to just defer doing all those other kind of outreach activities, which are really important when you're conducting a job search. But no two ways around it. We've done plenty of surveys and plenty of polls, and is the CV dead? Is LinkedIn now taken over? And it's pretty, it's pretty equal, I'd say, across the board. So that being said, recruiters will still want to see it. They'll want to see a punchy document. They want to see something that really convinces them to have a conversation with you. They don't want to see War Peace, and that's the kind of conversation that we'll have throughout these few brief slides. The problem that you'll have under the tick icon there is that you'll have lots of different views about CVs, what makes the best CV, what kind of standard and style it should be, what font it should be, and you can get quite detailed about this. So what we did a few years back was went out and spoke to many of the top tier recruiters and headhunters and asked them what they like to see on an executive level CV. So much of what I tell you in this presentation is based around their views that they fed back to us. So it's kind of, a little bit of insight about the way they're thinking and the way that they often view candidates as well, which is sort of some interesting takeaways I think you'll find there as well. So some of the things they said that there were kind of different opinions about CV quality around usually a candidate thinking their CV was okay and it's not. Now, going back to that subjectivity piece, what we try and help people achieve is a CV that you can have as a placeholder document, and then that if you go and speak to a recruiter, so on, so you're going to have people wanting to update and adjust your CV, your resume, for each particular scenario in any case. So where do you end all of this? Just start with one particular placeholder document that you can adapt as you wish. So They also mentioned to us about challenges in expressing skills and what value you bring. I think what that means is that people were sometimes focusing their CV on job description pieces rather than this was the project I got involved in, this was the challenge, this was the result, that kind of flow. So think about your CV and think about, are there lines on there or are there mentions throughout the CV which are really just, sort of almost a so what. I always remember that phrase a recruiter said once, a so what point, and if you think it could be a so what point, then just ditch it and make sure that you have only points that are going to be really, really solid. So yeah, okay, on to the next. So okay, the first piece around the executive summary, we'll talk about in a little bit more detail, and we can field questions on this as well. It's one of the critical parts of it. I think that enhancing your career history means some of the things I've just mentioned. It's bringing out the main knockout punches, and I think I refer to that in a little bit, that you can include on your CV, whether that includes pounds or dollars, impact results that you've got. Nothing draws the eye more than a percentage sign or a currency sign when it relates to an achievement. So bear that in mind when you're building these bullet points within your CV. Just bear with me 1 second. Yeah, okay. I'm just muting somebody there. Okay, so think about this all as establishing your personal brand, essentially. So the whole thing is that solid document that you're going to come away with, and then you can move on. You can forget it. You can start applying. You can start networking. You can start doing all of those other things. Like I said at the start, it's very easy these days to spend forever trying to find the perfect CV, and I don't think it exists. I think you have to create something that's good for you, that's the best it can be, but going off and thinking, oh, that style might be slightly better, or that font might be slightly better, spending days and weeks doing that and agonizing over it, I don't think it's productive. So again, what we tend to tell people to do with this is, if you imagine your executive summary at the top, and then you're going straight into your chronological career history. So now between those two things, between those two elements, people will often put a bullet pointed list of skills that they have. I've got no problem with that, no objection with that. The only thing I would say that it does result in is your chronological history being pushed further down the page and maybe onto page 2 or page 3. And just on that point, if you've had a substantial career, you've been around the block a few times, having a 2.5, 3-page CV, I don't think is an issue at all. I wouldn't be stressed about squeezing everything onto 2 pages. I know that some people, depending on what part of the world you're in, some people will have a 1-page overview, which they sometimes adopt in certain situations as well. But certainly keep it very sharp, and you want people to look at it within like 20 seconds and be able to home in on those percentages, those currency achievement pieces. Now, if you're in a role that's kind of more human impact, let's say it's a HR role, something like that, human impact results are fine as well. Now, you can't always express things in financial terms, I appreciate, but just make sure that whatever you're doing, it's got a really sharp kind of element to it. Sure, what's happening there? Excuse me 1 second. Bear with me a second, guys. Okay. So anyway, let's move on. So here's some people that we worked with, and these people, just to reiterate that we do work with real people, and they get real results. So we've got that kind of element throughout, and I think that yeah, I think you probably can't see that, but you may see those on our website as well, and there will be many more testimonials on there. So just touching on that briefly, just to give it some kind of reality to show that we're working in real situations. So I said just now about that executive summary, what's it all about? So I would keep that top piece as a critical piece on the CV. Keep it keep it very punchy, keep it very compelling. It doesn't have to be War and Peace. I say 6 to 10 lines. I'm hedging my bets a little bit there. It kind of depends on the individual, and it depends on what you actually want to achieve out of it. So, but make sure you spend a while. If we were coaching somebody on this, we could easily spend a coaching session just focusing on the executive summary. And in terms of the keep it person neutral, in other words, so I am a competent and capable, commercially astute chief financial officer, whatever it might be. Just change it to a commercially astute, etc. You're reducing the word count as well, and try and make sure you avoid sort of repetition throughout that as well. And really, really emphasize what you bring to the market. Do you remember earlier I was saying about putting dollar signs, pound signs, and so on? Nothing wrong with putting some of that within the within the executive summary as well. Just maybe just one real knockout blow, let's say. The last point here is I call that optional. Some people on their placeholder CV will put, at this point I am exploring opportunities within the such and such a sector, and job title, etc., just giving a little aspirational piece at the end, and so on. So that can kind of be helpful in some instances. So it does really link in with your personal brand. I mean, you've got to be your CV. It's an isolated subject in a sense, what we're talking about here, but you've got to kind of encompass everything, because if you do a really cracking, fantastic CV and you turn up at the interview and, you don't sound like the person on the CV. So you've done a really good CV, you're really good at getting interviews, but you're not delivering when you get in the interview. I think it all has to be looked at as a holistic kind of piece, but I will go through these points here anyway. So make sure it's all aligned, which is the point I was making really. Down on the third point there, when you've got your company name, it's okay to put under that. I usually say 9-point italics to people, just to keep it sort of relatively small. A 5,000 employee organization based in such and such with a turnover of such and such. Just a very quick overview of the organization, in each case, and that can help. So again, I will emphasize things and I will repeat things. I'm sorry, I can't really apologize for that, because they are important, but make sure the key achievements and the really, really strong results are there. Going back to that point I made about, so what points. If it is, I was a member of the managing team, I was a member of the managing board, is that really, impactful? Keep all the really important stuff there, all the hard facts, in other words. Sure, you've all heard of this. I mean, there are other acronyms as well, but I tend to go by this one because it kind of breaks it down a little bit more. So, I was brought in to manage a certain such and such a project because of this situation that existed. I discovered that what was needed was such and such, creating this, implementing this. I took these specific steps, 1, 2, 3, whatever it might be, or even just 1 point. And then very importantly, at the end, make sure you outline the result itself. So yeah, actually, this can be used quite effectively as a sort of an anchor for you in interview situations as well. I think, just in terms of when do I stop speaking on the end of this interview question. Think about the result all the time. Why are you actually expressing it? So result, very, very, very important. This is quite straightforward, I think, here, really. What does the reader want to know? Think about that. Think about it from their point of view. Like in the interview, do I like them? Will they fit in? Can they do the job? Not necessarily in that order. It's a similar kind of scenario. They really want to know that your achievements are strong. They're very clear. They'd expect somebody at senior level to be communicating in a clear, concise, brief, if anything, fashion anyway. So think about that. It's not War and Peace. It's something that every word has got to be, thought about. I mean, we'll even look at CVs and think sometimes, someone's used the same word twice in a sentence or something, for example. So you just need to look at it in that kind of detail. But once you've done it, like I said at the start, once you've done it, that's it. Okay. I hope that's helpful as a discussion prompter, at least, for when we sort of pop back into the room in a minute. But like I said at the outset, the links are in the chat. If someone wants to book in a conversation, you can do that while we're on the call. You can do it after. It's totally up to you. I think, though, that think about what we've talked about now and think about your own situation. So just that when we come back into the room, we've got some questions ready to go. And as ever, I'm always excited to see who's gonna break the ice, first of all. I hope that was useful, and I hope you've got something out of it. Beware, there are always lots of views about CVs, and at some point you've just got to crack on and get it done and see it as part of the overall job search process, not the be all and end all. All right. So we've got everyone muted here at the moment. Oh, hello, Lynn. Hi, nice to see you again, Lynn. I haven't seen you since before.
Yeah, it's been a while. I didn't want to disappoint you. I can kick off.
No, that's absolutely fantastic. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Yeah, fire away, please.
I think the observation on the executive summary, I think it's something that's quite challenging to write anyway, to summarize down. But what I find particularly difficult is the dropping the I and then making that cohesive, making the sentences make sense.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned there about, for example, saying a senior level executive. It's really, have you got any tips for making those sentences flow in a way that doesn't sound a bit odd? Because are you talking about saying have, did, and then dropping the personal subject? I'm just trying to understand a little bit more how that can be written in a streamlined way, because I just look at them sometimes and it reads strangely. Long question, but I hope you're getting the gist.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you have to, it's easier for any of us to start doing it from that first person perspective. But once you've actually done that, then it's a question of saying, what's the difference between a commercially astute CFO to I am a commercially astute CFO? That probably wouldn't sound too weird from your own sort of perspective, but I can see when it gets into kind of other things, it's about how you're stringing the sentences together. And I think that's where, whether you throw it into AI and see what that feeds back, or however way we do it these days, I think you just start off with the I part and then just see what you can come up with, thereafter. But I think the ones you're talking about is probably where people have had, they've taken some advice on board, but they haven't sort of thought it through about how it actually reads, per se. I think that's probably the problem.
That's quite an important point that you raised there about AI. Can you recognize those CVs? And I guess there's a danger in that as well, because people should be using it as a starting point.
Yes, it's yeah, absolutely. It's got its uses, but I think if you do any amount of work with AI, you'll see that it has its particular quirks of the way it throws out certain headings, certain phrases, and so on and so forth. I think some people have actually probably taken it a little bit too far. They're not doing the human editing part. As I'm always saying to people, it's the human interaction that makes the difference really in the end, more so. They're probably just taking it really as a kind of a one size fits all and relying on it a little bit too much. But I think just in terms of getting a structure together, it can form a framework, and why not? Why not?
Okay, I'll give that. I mean, it might be useful also to stick it in a couple of different search engines, I guess, as well. Apps, I suppose they're called.
Yeah, and there's a few. I discovered one called Claude. If you've not heard of that,
yeah,
and it's a kind of a bit of a mix and match, about which tends to come up. As you know now, most people are pretty au fait with it now, and it's all about the brief, isn't it? If you if you kind of put a really detailed briefing, you want it in UK spelling, you want it, you know, in the style of such and such, whatever it is, you know, depends what you're writing. But it's all about the brief, but particularly for CV, I don't think you can rely on it, you know, wholly. I think there is a tendency to rely on it a little bit too much now because people have seen how easy it is and how much of a shortcut it is, you know. But I think that, yeah, running it by a few human eyes is never gonna kind of hinder that process.
Yeah, it's interesting. People do seem to have their favorites as well, don't they, depending on the type of work they do. So, okay.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we've got a template. There's 1,000,001 CV templates in any event, but I think in the end you've got to do something as a placeholder that literally works for you. And it's a bit like cover letters that can be in long form, you know, just too long. It's got to be something that just really grabs the attention. What's happened to people's attention spans over time? Obviously, you know, drastically reduced. So it's kind of how do you draw that in? And I'd say even with that executive summary, you know, the first couple of lines are critical, you know, just in terms of what's the difference between you going off onto a has been pile or a yes pile, you know.
Okay, thanks very much.
All right. Hi, Vashna. Yeah, fire away.
Good morning. Thank
Hi.
you very much. Good morning, everyone. So just two questions from my side. The first one is, so if you've created a CD, but you want an opinion, does your company offer an opinion on CVs? So that's the first thing. And the second one is in terms of your placement, what does that entail? And if I wanted to explore that further, what do I have to do?
Got you. Okay. So with the CV, I mean, we do a lot of high level observations of people's CVs. What we won't do is go into detailed chapter and verse. If someone's a client, then we'll go into chapter and verse. It's as simple as that, really. But if someone sends a CV, and for example, you know, it doesn't have your LinkedIn link pasted along the top line where you've got your name and your address or your phone number or whatever, we point that out, you know, and we might point out that the summary is too long, or we might say that the font is difficult to read, you know, things of that nature that are good, that are definitely going to help. So more than happy to do that, you know, in any event anyway. So on the other front, I think it might be a question of, I need to understand your terminology about placement, because we're not a recruitment firm, and I always associate the word placement with placing people into a role. Outplacement is when a HR person would be approaching us to talk about somebody that's been made redundant, but what we deliver in the end is still coaching. It's still the same career coaching, shall we say, you know. So in order to find out more about that, certainly I would use the link that's been pasted into the chat. And my colleague Dorcas, who's here as well. Hi Dorcas, thanks for that. I pasted the ones that in there already, but the one that's just been pasted into the chat will be the one that you want to use if you want to then look at the questions that we're asking you prior to having a chat. You select a date and a time, and that's it. And that's it. That is a complimentary conversation. There is something in the nuance of that assumes that someone is seriously considering coaching if they book a conversation like that. So, you know, I've given you full chapter and verse on that. I suppose we're realistic and we try and be as, you know, helpful as possible, because you know what the situation is like, you know, when someone's looking for a role. So yes, no strings attached, happy to do a high level look at the CV. And the second one would be to use the link. I think it's the very latest link that's in the chat now, to keep it clear, which would be, yeah, that would be the one to use for yourself. Is that all right? You look like you might be doing that now.
Yeah, I'm just doing exactly that right now.
All right. What I'll do is I'll put the mute back onto you, if I may, and then. So who haven't spoken to yet? A couple of people without cameras on. Okay, I respect that, but there's some names I recognize, but I don't recall who.
I was just going to ask about on LinkedIn, because sometimes you feel like, a bit like you're saying, it's a placeholder CV, and then you might tailor it to a role. And if you've had a bit of a variety of experience that might fit lots of roles, I've always kept my LinkedIn quite basic, which I know probably isn't the right thing to do. And it's how much detail you're supposed to put on there. You know what?
LinkedIn. Just give me a sort of, what's your role, just very, very
So
broadly.
working as a finance director in a small portfolio a group of businesses in the media sector at the moment, but I've previously worked at Pizza Hut in various finance roles, and prior to that was at Ernst & Young.
Got you. Okay, Ruth. So it's with the situation of kind of, I think it's how much detail you populating LinkedIn with, essentially, and how to use it. So it's have a realization, and I'm just telling you this, so you've got no reason to believe it, but LinkedIn is a major player, you know, in the whole job search piece. So the benefit for having your LinkedIn populated and well populated is, think of it like a search engine as well. You know, if there are recruiters on there looking for finance director, media, they're not as subtle and clever about searching for people that many people might think. So you need to kind of do that work about making sure that you've got essentially keywords, if you like, in your profile. And that's one thing. It sounds a bit impersonal, and you know, it would look a bit you know, odd, let's say. I think that it's similar to what Lynn was saying. It has to read in a human sort of way. So, but you know, the more times you can mention finance director, such and such, finance director, such and such, finance director. Now, there's a point where everyone can start playing that game. This is just to get you more up onto the first page of results when people are searching for people like you. And that's the benefit of doing it. I always talk about this pie chart of a job search. And if people are just focusing on the CV, which we're talking about as well, fine, you know, and advertised roles, etc. But the whole LinkedIn piece can really help to get you across more people's radar. And that's how I would describe it. The content, though, I would say is slightly different. So we talked about executive summary just now, and you can see from some people's LinkedIn page that what they've done is taken their CV and just plumped, done that. So it's okay on LinkedIn to be a little bit more personable, is the only word I can think of right now. You know, you can tell the world a little bit more about yourself. You can tell it a line or two about your hobbies, such as you wish to do, if you wish to do that. There is I didn't come armed with this actually, but I think there's probably 2,500 characters or something pretty meaty that you can put into that about section in LinkedIn now, which many people just don't use. So it gives you the opportunity to do that. You know, you can treat it like you are marketing yourself. You know, let's connect and have a discussion. You know, you can be that different kind of slightly different persona from the CV to LinkedIn, let's say. So just think of all the elements. You know, you've got you've got that little banner behind you on LinkedIn. Some people just leave that as it is. Some people will go to the lengths of going to Fiverr.com and getting a background image designed, which it could be something that speaks to their professional world. It could be something that is a very special place they visited in their life. You know, it could be anything like that. Why? Keep the attention on that page for just that little bit longer. That's the reason for having that background image there. Coming down to your photograph, is it relatively recent? You know, when you rock up for the interview, do they think, who's this? You know, as long as it's relatively representative of you, that's fine. Underneath the photograph, where you've got maybe finance director, media experience, whatever it might be at the moment, again, there are quite a few characters that you can utilize under there. And some people will do it in a way that is I help organizations to solve their financial issues by astute financial management, specifically in the media sector, like a positioning statement or a, you know, that kind of approach. And some people will then do, I never know what the character is on the keyboard, but it gives you a line like that. We'll just give that separation of different things. So finance experience, auditing, whatever it might be, and then just keep putting keywords in that they think might be searched for. Thing to remember on that is that when someone is searching for someone like yourself on LinkedIn, that piece just below your photograph is the first place that algorithmically LinkedIn will look at first of all, to sort of, and then it'll go down to your first career experience as the next jumping off point. So yeah, bit of a, hope it wasn't too rambly an answer, Ruth. It's all about just populate it, just really populate it and take the use of all the different aspects that are there, but then proactively keep looking at who's viewed your profile. And then what do I do now? So if it looks like somebody interesting, oh, noticed you, I noticed you visited my page recently. How are things with you? Because, you don't know what the reason was for looking at it, obviously, at that point. So think of it as a proactive piece as well. It is important to view that who's viewed my profile piece, because if you've got a free account, the people who viewed your page will just start to disappear, and you'll never see them again if you don't do it, every single day. Which, if you've got a free account, is probably the best thing to do. But if you've got a premium account, which you can set up and have it for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, whatever your job search is, and then knock it on the head afterwards, it just gives you more visibility and so on, and the ability to do more searches and broader searches and so on. But I would always say to people, get good at the free account first before you start looking at premium type things. So hope that's okay, Ruth.
Thank you.
Happy to revisit it at any point. Shahid, thanks for being patient.
No problems at all. I just wanted to raise a couple of points, Steve. Very helpful session, by the way, mate. For the wider audience, there's a couple of things. I found there's some really good YouTube videos out there on LinkedIn that show you how to populate, just in case people are struggling in terms of, something else I've got to learn. There's some good free content out there that just helps people do stuff. And I was just remembering when the YouTube bit came to mind, because I picked that up from someone talking about that caption bit below your picture and how that appears.
Yes.
And the other one was, just be careful. If I find a link, Steve, what I'll do is I'll personally send it to you, and you can share it more widely if you want. My younger brother, who's in tech, was sharing with me something over the weekend that said, every CV he gets or approach he gets, the first thing he does is put it through an AI cruncher, i.e., has it actually used AI to get to that point? So what he now does is basically his company turns around and says, anyone who's used AI in a significant way to produce this, I rule them out because they're not the people I want.
Yeah. I think
so. There's a very
challenge
balance. There's a very interesting balance emerging. Everyone's using the chats or others of this world, but as I said, what I'll do is I'll find the link and I'll share it with you privately, and then you leave it at that, and you can choose what you want to do with that.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thanks, Shahid. I really appreciate it. Look forward to getting that. And you're right, there's lots of content out there. I'm not all about, well, we do it as well, but there's a lot of good content out there. There's a lot of people who do YouTube a lot better than I do out there, so take a holistic view. I think that the people we work with tend to be at the senior level end most of the time as well. So just, we would certainly not be looking at using any of the usual suspects to sort of generate a CV. It's more about, explain, if you take a isolated bullet point, explain what that bullet point was all about. What did you do on that? What was the result? And then doing it from there. So, but yeah, I hear what you're saying, and it's an interesting thing. People are concerned about that. They're concerned about other screening methodologies for CVs as well. But I hope it's not just naivety when I'm saying that for senior level roles. I hope there's still very much a human involved at the front and back end of things.
I hope so.
Yes, yeah. But
and by the way, Steve, I will reach out to you as well on that link and just do a quick session with you just to see if there's any way you can help. That would be appreciated.
That's fine. No problem, Shahid. Thank you for that. Okay, guys. So we've got a few minutes. If anyone's still got a question, happy to stay around or want to revisit something. Burning issues. Anyone that's not put their camera on at the moment, obviously I can't see if you're looking enthused, or if you're looking bored, or if you're even in front of your camera at the moment. I don't know, but if you've got a question, now's the
Just a
time
quick
to ask.
question. So if you're
Thank you. Hi, Ian.
hello there, and thanks. I had my first introductory meeting with the advisor last week, or
Ian's a client of ours. Yes.
just recent. So what if a lot of your skills and your quantitative things are 8 to 12 years ago, and in your last 8 years or so, you've actually just changed direction slightly? How do you actually then do your CV? This is a question I'll be going through
Yes.
Rick on Friday. But how do you actually then do it? Because a lot of your skills or the things which recruiters would be really interested in might be too old now. How do you position that?
Yeah, I think it's a question of have a discussion about what you've done in the intervening period and how long that gap is. I'm trying to hark back to our original conversation as well, and failing to recall it. But I think that as long as you can bring the relevant information that you're trying to put forward up onto page 1 as much as you possibly can, then that's one way forward. The other question would be what's been happening in the intervening period, and how much you want to downplay that, let's say, just in terms of the amount of content you would include on that intervening period. And if you're looking at, what you've done those years back being the most relevant to what you're aiming for, then yeah, it definitely needs to be up on page 1 if at all possible. There's another, and I promise this isn't a get out from my perspective, but it's not just about the CV. And we've had a bit of a talk about LinkedIn and so on. And I think the reason that people don't gravitate towards it is just it's a little bit sort of build it and they will come type of feeling, and a bit less tangible than getting this solid document together, putting it forward for advertised roles, and then putting it on your spreadsheet or wherever, and tracking it and all of that good stuff. Whereas, many people we've had as clients and people we've not had as clients have had great results in having a solid LinkedIn strategy, posting a couple of times a week, sorting out what subject areas really interest them. So the ones you were talking about that are going back a bit, you can hashtag follow and contribute to postings on those particular subjects. You're monitoring again then who's viewed your profile as well, and reaching out to people. So it's more, it just feels, I think for a lot of people, it feels a bit more complex. Whereas if you've got a strategy for it, it isn't. You post twice a week. You're going to connect with, debate that, X number of new people each week. What's your connection request message going to be? What's your follow-up message going to be? Are they going to come back to you, or are you going to have a Zoom call or whatever it might be? So that's what I would say. It's kind of not answering the CV point so much as saying ensure that the CV is part of a broader job search strategy. That's all, because many of the best roles are just outside your immediate network, probably anyway. And it comes back to what was talked about with Ruth, that LinkedIn is just such a major player. What is it now? It's not hundreds of millions, it's a billion, isn't it? Now I think, just in terms of how many people are using that. So it's still important to stand out on that particular, and in your case it might be even more important, because you've got to get the opportunity of being able to convince people and talk to people and sell people your skills and your abilities, and kind of minimize that time gap and push forward the benefits, and just have that solid belief all the way through. I hope that helps a little bit anyway, Ian. But think about LinkedIn as well as thinking about CV, if anything. All right, people.
Hi, Steve. I've got a quick question, if that's okay.
Hi.
Hi, my name's Asia. I have a question about the amount of people you have on LinkedIn. I get so many requests for people to join my network,
Yes.
and most of the time I don't know who they are. I never heard of them, and they've found me via a search or whichever methods they have. A lot of time it's recruiters, a lot of time it's other people who are looking for jobs. And I don't know, I'm always very reluctant to add people onto my network just for the sake of it, because I feel that the people can kind of piggyback off of the people that you know. And I don't know, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What's the right way to add people into your network?
Yeah, interesting conundrum. Can I just know what your baseline circumstances are? Are you settled? Are you a person in a job search? Are you a recruiter?
Yeah, my current role, I'm at risk of redundancy, so I'm actively looking for a role.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so let's go back to your question there, Sia, just to get some clarification there. That was all. LinkedIn is a strange beast because, you know, you'll sometimes say it'll say only connect with people you know, then the next minute it's throwing up loads of images in front of you of people that are trying to get you to connect with. And it depends on your goals and what you want to do. If you think that the person connecting to you, think of it as and each one on its merits, I think is my bottom line. You know, you if you're guarded about accepting everyone in, fine, that's your inner guide, isn't it? Just telling you not to do that, I guess. You've got to know the people that are genuine, or try and gauge the people who are genuine, the people who are not. So, but I think there's nothing wrong with talking to recruiters. You can always, you can always do it in two phases. Disconnect to the person and monitor it, or if you've connected and you start seeing loads of things in your feed that you don't want to see, you can unfollow them but still stay connected. You probably know that, but it's just a question of how you want to manage that. But if you're looking at, a situation that you're in at the moment, interacting with recruiters, as long as they're at the right level for you and they seem of the right organization, etc. I would say yes. Not open the floodgates, but just be selective.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, take care. Thanks. Okay, there we go. So if there are no more questions, we'll draw a line under things there. The recording will be sent out very, very soon. And thank you all for your attention. I really appreciate you turning up today, and look forward to seeing you on future events as well. Thank you, Shahid. I can't do that. You figured out how to do the hand clap emoji. So yeah, but thank you all for turning up, and I look forward to seeing you again on the next call. All right. All the very best, guys. Take care. Bye for now.